for that process, to go for that process, and we've backlogged. We've limited the intellectual property that we can capture. Number two is we've allowed people to take those same patents when we have limited ability, especially some of our smaller organizations, and allow those to be patented elsewhere. So the lack of a timely approach on that is lacking. I see the senator from Vermont, and I think he wanted 7 or 8 minutes, and I'm happy to yield at this time if he'd like to have it. All right, thank you. So the process is broken. And since 1992, the amendment I have says that we will no longer divert the money that American businesses, American inventors, American universities pay to the patent office to be spent somewhere else. That it has to be spent on clearing their patents. I would like you to introduce into the record, and I would submit a copy at this time, a letter I received August 1st from the head of the Patent Office. And I must tell you that we are so fortunate that we have Director Campos. We have a true expert in patents with great knowledge, who has made tremendous strides in making great changes at our patent office. But he requires a steady stream of money, and he requires the ability to manage the organization in a way to where he can actually accomplish what we've asked him to do. And quite frankly, I've spent a lot of time working with the patent office, not everybody else that wants an advantage in the patent system, but with the patent office. And I'm convinced we've got great leadership there now. And in his letter, he talks about the inability to update their IT because the money isn't there, because we won't let them have the money. Their money, money that American taxpayers. And let me just give a corollary. If, in fact, you drive your car into the gas station and you give them $100 for 25 or 28 gallons of gas, and yet they only give you 12 gallons of gas, and they say, sorry, the appropriation committee said you couldn't have all the gas you were supposed to get for the money that you paid, we'd be outraged. Or if you go to a movie and you pay the fee to go to a movie, and you buy a ticket and you walk in, and halfway through the movie they stop the projection and say, sorry, we're not going to give you the second half of the movie even though you paid for it. Well, inventors in this country have paid the fees to have their patents examined and evaluated and reviewed. And yet we, because of a power struggle, have decided that we're not going to let that money go to the patent office. So the amendment I have says that we're going to allow that to happen. That if money's paid and it goes into a proper fund that is allocatable only to the patent office, can't be spent anywhere else, and has to go to the patent office. Now, some of the objections, especially in the House of the Appropriations Committee, is, well, there's no oversight. Well, the reason there's no oversight is because they haven't done any oversight, and neither have we. So you can't claim that as an excuse of why you're afraid. This bill, this patent bill, will give an authorization for 7 years for their fees. We can change that if we want. But the fact is, we're never going to know if we need to change it if we never do oversight, which we've not done. Nobody's done oversight on the patent office. And I'm talking aggressive oversight. What did you start? What was your end? How much did you spend? Where would you spend the money? What's your employee turnover? What's your employee productivity? What should we expect? None of that's been asked. I believe it's probably pretty good because I have a lot of confidence in the management at the patent office, especially in terms of what I've seen in performance in the last couple of years versus before that. But the fact is that oversight hadn't been done. And it's not just the patent office. We haven't done it anywhere. Very little oversight's been accomplished by the Senate. And it's one of the biggest legitimate criticisms that can be made of us as a body, is that we're lazy in our oversight function. Of the $3.7 trillion that's going to be spent, we're going to oversight about $100 billion of it total. So the amendment does a couple of things. And let me kind of detail that for a moment. One of the things by returning the money to the Patent Office is the director thinks that he can actually cut the backlog in half. In other words, we have over 700,000 patents that have never been looked at sitting at the Patent Office now, and he believes that in a very short period of time they can cut that to 350,000. From 1992 through 2011, $900 million has been taken from the PTO. In 2004, Congress diverted $100 million. In 2007, it diverted $12 million. Last year, it diverted $53 million. It's $80 to $85 million that's going to be diverted this year. In 4 years out of the last 10, the Congress gave the Patent Office all the money because it was so slow and so lethargic in terms of meeting the needs of inventors. The only thing we have in the current bill is the promise of a speaker and the promise of a chairman that they'll do that.
The senator from Oklahoma knows that the basic thing he's trying to do is something that I had supported. As he knows, I put it in the manager's package. He also is aware that my feeling is, obviously we disagree, my feeling is the acceptance of his amendment will effectively kill the bill. Even today, the leadership in the House has told me they would not accept that bill with it. I say this only because tactically it would be to my advantage to object to the amendment, but the distinguished senator is one of the hardest working members of the Judiciary Committee. He is always there when I need a quorum, and out of respect to him, I will not object.
Well, I thank the senator for this. This is a minor technical correction.
Without objection, the clerk will report.
Senator from Oklahoma, Mr. Coburn, for himself and others, proposes an amendment
I'd ask that the amendment be
599 as
considered as
modified.
read.
Without objection.
I would thank the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I had noted earlier before he came to the floor that he had supported in principle, and we had a difference of opinion on what would happen to the bill. This is a minimal technical correction that was recommended to us, and I appreciate the senator allowing it to be considered. Let me spend a minute talking about the chairman and his feeling that this won't go anywhere. This is a critical juncture for our country. When we're going to make a decision to not do what is right because somebody is threatening that they don't agree with doing what's right and that they won't receive it. You know, in my life of 63 years, that's how bullies operate. And the way you break a bully is you challenge a bully. And the fact is I've just recorded into the history of the House the statements by the chairman of the Appropriation Committee in the House in terms of his guarantee for protecting the funds for PTO, which he turned around and took $121 million out of the funds that very same year that he guaranteed on the floor that he wouldn't do. So what I would say is we ought not worry about idle threats. What we ought to worry about is doing the best right thing for our country. And the best right thing is to give the money to the Patent Office that people are paying for it so that the patents will get approved and our technological innovation will be protected. And so I don't buy the idea that the House isn't going to take this if we modify and actually what 95% of the people in this country would agree to, that the Patent Office ought to get the money that we're paying for patent fees, just like the FDA ought to get the money that's paid by drug companies for new applications, just like the Park Service ought to put the money for the camping sites that are paid for camping sites back into the camping sites. Why would we run away from doing right things? And so I find it very difficult when we rationalize down doing the correct thing that everybody agrees should be done, but we won't do it for the right reasons. That's why we have a 12% approval rating. That's why people don't have confidence in Congress, because we walk away from the tough challenges of bullies who say, we won't do something if you do what is right. And I'm not going to live my life that way. I'm not going to be a senator that way. I'm going to stand on a position of principle. This is a principle that 95 senators in this body agree with. And we're going to have several of our leaders try to get them not to do that in the basis of rationalization to a bully system that says, we won't do the oversight, but we still want to be in control. And in the fact, the process of that, America loses. Because we have 750,000 patents that are pending right now, and there should only be about 100,000. Because the bullies have won in the past. And I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm going to stand up and challenge it every time. And I'm going to make the argument that if you pay a fee for something in this country for the government to do, that money ought to be spent doing what you paid the government to do. It's outside of a tax, it's a fee. And it is immoral and close to being criminal to not spend that money for that fee. So if our body decides today they're going to table this amendment, the question that the American people have to ask is, where's the courage in the Senate to do what's best for our country? Why are the senators here if they're not going to do what's best for the country? Why are they going to play the game of rationalization and extortion on principles that matter so much to our future? I won't do that anymore. Everybody knows this is the right thing to do. And we're babysitting some spoiled members of Congress who don't want to carry out their responsibilities in an honorable way and do the oversight that's necessary. And what they want to do is complain that they don't have control. Well, this bill authorizes funds for 7 years. We can change that number of years. We can actually change the actual amount of fees if, in fact, they're not doing a good job. But right now, as already put in the record, there's no history of significant oversight to the Patent Office, so they wouldn't know in the first place. And so what we're asking is to do the right thing, the transparent thing, the morally correct thing, and give the Patent Office the opportunity to do what it can do for them, instead of handcuff us and handicap us to where we can't compete on intellectual property in their country. I've said enough on that. I will reserve the balance of my time when I finish talking about one other item. There's an earmark in this patent bill for the medicine company. It ought not be there. This is something that's being adjudicated in the courts right now. Senator Sessions has an amendment that would change it. I believe it's inappropriate to specify one company, one situation on a drug that is significant to this country, and we're fixing the wrong problem. We probably won't win that amendment, but I think it's something that the American people ought to look at and say, why is this here? Why is something in this big bill that's so important to our country, and I agree with our chairman, he has worked months, if not years, over the last 6 years trying to get to this process, and now we have this put in. We didn't have it in ours. The chairman didn't have it in ours. It came from the House, and we ought to ask the question, why is it there? Why are we interfering in something that's at the appellate court level right now? Why are we doing that? None of us can feel good about that. none of us can say it's the right thing to do. And why would we tolerate it? You know, it really is, this lack of confidence in America is about a lack of confidence in us. When people know and find out what's happened here, they're going to ask a question. The powerful and the wealthy advantage themselves at the expense of everybody else. They have access.